Welcome to the NBA Closing Time Show on Pub Sports Radio for Wednesday, January 27th. Ian Cameron and Skee Profit ready to break down the NBA betting card for this Wednesday. It's a massive one. We've got some good games. We've got a lot of games to break down. Let's get right to it. Start at the top of the rotation, as we always do, with the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Got Cleveland a 2-point favorite in this game, 2.5 now in some spots, 215 the total in this game. This is going to be shocking maybe to some people, because you would think with all the games that have been played here in the NBA and how much time has elapsed, the last time the Pistons won 2 games in a row was a year ago, last January 2020. All right. And that's basically the situation that they find themselves in tonight. Trying to bounce back or trying to win 2 straight games in a row after beating Philadelphia in their last game. But remember, Sixers a little bit shorthanded in that game that they got the victory in decisive fashion against the Sixers in that one. Detroit's had trouble holding leads. That's been a consistent theme with the Pistons this season. And they're taking on a Cleveland team that I think now moving forward, Cleveland might be a sneaky team to watch out for. You know, they've got Colin Sexton back on the floor now. It's a shame that just as they got him back, Larry Nance Jr. then goes down with a wrist injury. He's currently questionable tonight. But nevertheless, Cleveland, I think, is going to be a team that's going to be, I think, a team that might have some bet on potential. And they've actually shown that the last few games. They're 4-1 in their last 5 ATS. Beat New York, beat Brooklyn twice in impressive fashion. They had that really poor game against Boston that J.B. Bickerstaff basically said, called his team out a little bit after the Boston game. And sure enough, they cover against the Lakers, give the defending champions, everything they could handle in the next game, 115-108. So I like what I'm seeing out of this Cleveland team. And how about the fact, Skee, that they were under early in the season, and now you're starting to see them go over the total, trend over the total, and Colin Sexton certainly plays a part in this team being a better offensive team and going over the total. So I would lean a little bit that way over the total, and I would lean Cleveland here. I think they're the team that's got the value, and dare Detroit to win 2 in a row, which, as I said, that's something they haven't done in a year, is win 2 games in a row, this Pistons team. So I like Cleveland in the over in this game. Skee, what's your thoughts? Pistons and Cavs.
I like this Cavaliers team, and sorry guys, I'm on the road. If you hear anything in the back, that's the reason why. And you see my background's a little bit different, but I like this Cleveland Cavaliers team. They're Sexton and Garland. They can put up some points, and they had a lot of unders, but there were some games where those guys were not in the lineup, and they didn't really have any guards. It was just a game full of trees. So, I mean, I'm a believer in this Cleveland team more than I am this Detroit team, and in just a pick 'em game, that's kind of the way I'll lean in this game. It's not one of the plays I'm running to the window to bet, but I'll be leaning towards Cleveland.
All right, next up on the slate, Sacramento and Orlando. We've got Orlando 1.5 point home favorites, 224 the total, which has gone up from 221.5. That's not really a surprise when you see the Sacramento Kings involved, although they did have 2 unders in their last 2 games against the Clippers and the Knicks. We'll see if that continues here against Orlando. But Orlando has suddenly found some offense. We've talked about for a while there when they were dealing with just a ton of injuries. This team was not scoring 100 points in a game very often. Now all of a sudden they're healthier. Aaron Gordon back. Evan Fournier now has played a couple of games in a row now, at least for this Orlando team. And suddenly they've scored 118, 104, and 117 in their last 3 games. 2 of those have gone over the total. So it makes me think that maybe Orlando now shooting the ball a little bit more efficient offensively the last few games. Maybe they'll just fall into Sacramento's, pace of play. Sacramento's lack of defense certainly should allow Orlando to make some shots and in this game here tonight. As far as the side goes, I'd lean a little Orlando, but I agree with the total move. That's my primary opinion here is over the 224. Skee, what do you like here? Kings Magic.
The Kings, they still continue to play no defense, but they're starting to play a slower pace. And Orlando also plays a slow pace. With that said, I still think Sacramento can score. And with the guys coming back from Orlando, I expect their offense to continue to get a little bit better. The number I have for this game on the total was 224.5. So I think it's right where it should be now. If you got in early, you probably got a good bet there. I like Sacramento for the side, though. I like to fade teams that are rested at home, and they won their last game as a favorite, but they had to come back to do it by double digits, and that's Orlando. And those teams are 16, 32, and 1 against the spread, and that's who I will fade. I'll go with the Sacramento Kings tonight.
All right, Indiana taking on Charlotte here. We've got the Pacers, 2-point road favorites in this one, 219.5 the total. Interesting matchup here. We've got Indiana. They played a couple in a row with the Toronto Raptors in their last two games. They ended up splitting those two affairs with the Raptors, losing the first one, winning the second game, 129-114. As far as Charlotte's concerned, they beat Orlando 107-104 first meeting against the Magic, and then they dropped the second one 117-108. And then you look at Charlotte, their schedule overall. They beat the Hawks twice. They beat the Pelicans. They beat the Knicks. Do I trust them to step up in class? No, I don't. So the bottom line is, with this move going toward Indiana, I agree with it a little bit. I lean that way. I haven't bet the game yet. But I can see why people like Indiana here a little bit. Charlotte's had a tough time stepping up in class, putting that good foot forward against the better teams on their schedule. Skee, what do you like here? Indiana, Charlotte.
I should have had this stat pulled up, but I feel like Indiana has been a great team when they play on the road versus these lesser teams, like less than 45% win teams. I think that's the road that you want Indiana in. I will say Charlotte has been playing better the last few games, but my number for this game is still 4 for Indiana. So that's the way that I would likely look to play this game, not when I'm running to the window with.
All right. So both of us lukewarm lean toward Indiana in that one. Milwaukee and Toronto, we've got the Bucks 6.5, 7-point road favorites here. This total has been steamed up 223.5 all the way to 228 here in this game. I know it's a shell of the Raptors team that Milwaukee faced in the Eastern Conference Final this year, but the Raptors, just as in theory, should always be a team that gets Milwaukee's attention, you would think. And you would expect that to be the case tonight against for the Bucks as they take on this Raptors team. Raptors continue to really be up and down. Of course, they've got a couple of their key players banged up as well, as particularly OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. And they've coming off a 129-114 loss to Indiana. They split that game. They split with Miami. They have been playing a little bit better lately overall, Toronto, but still having those games where defensively, actually, they've struggled. They certainly did against Indiana, allowing the Pacers to shoot 40 of 78 from the field. It was not a good night for Nick Nurse's team at the defensive end of the floor. Milwaukee, you know what? You look at them, they've got a little bit more of a rest advantage too. They haven't played since Sunday when they beat up on Atlanta 129-115. Of course, the Hawks were sitting a couple of their key players in that one, and the Bucks took advantage. Prior to that, they had lost 2 in a row against the Lakers and the Bucks. I certainly don't want to go against Milwaukee here, but, you're asking laying 7 here. You're not laying a cheap number with this Bucks team. I think they win the game. I'm not sure I'm rushing to lay 7 with Milwaukee. So it's not a game I got involved with, but I lean to the Bucks a little bit. Skee, what about you? Milwaukee, Toronto here.
I'll look more at the total probably in this game, and two teams that are not playing very fast. And I just trust both teams on defense more than I trust the offense. It's going up. The number's going up towards the over, but I just don't agree with it. The number I have is closer to 225, and I just think two slower pace type teams. And like you said, Toronto should always have Milwaukee's attention. It should be like they should both show up on defense is how I feel about this game, and I would lean towards the under.
Yeah, that seems real high now. I mean, 228 is where this total is after an opener of 223.5. We've got Brooklyn and Atlanta. The Nets 6.5 point road favorites here in the ATL. The total's been bet up from 235.5 to 238.5. Well, and I think some of that is a reaction to the first couple of meetings earlier this season between the Nets and the Hawks, and they were shootouts. No question about it. And I think maybe some people are saying maybe we're going to see more of the same here. I don't know. First of all, it's 238.5. You need a clean, smooth ride if you're going to get a game over a total at that number. And second of all, can we buy into some defense from Brooklyn after what we saw in the last game from the Nets? I mean, you got to give them credit. They were That was finally Steve Nash has been preaching for his team to show up defensively. They didn't in the first game against Miami, but in the rematch, boy, that was probably the best defensive game that this trio with since Irving, Harden, and Durant have all been here on the floor at the same time. It's probably the best defensive game we've seen out of Brooklyn. 98-85. They hold the Heat to 31 of 84 shooting from the field. And it's the kind of defensive effort Nash wants to see from this team. So they've been just absolutely just automatic, it seems, for the last couple of weeks, Skee, as an over team, this Brooklyn team. But can we buy into maybe the worm is going to turn a little bit here with Brooklyn after what we saw from them defensively holding Miami to 85 points in their win the other night? If that's the case, maybe this total is a bit too high. We've talked about Atlanta for weeks, that they're not necessarily being priced correctly from a totals perspective. They've gone 8-2 to the under in their last 10 games, including the last game against the Clippers last night, 108-99. Of course, the Clippers sat a lot of guys in that game, including Kawhi and PG. So you got to take that win for Atlanta with a little bit of a grain of salt. As far as this game goes, I kind of lean Brooklyn, believe it or not, here. 6.5, with Atlanta on the second of the back-to-backs, with Brooklyn finally putting their foot down, playing good defense. We know what they can do at the other end with the superstar talent they have. But if I'm going to be proactive and say Brooklyn maybe is going to figure it out at the defensive end of the court. And if that's the case, I think they can maybe not only win and cover. I think people see that Atlanta played Brooklyn very tough earlier this season, Skee. That was a much different looking Brooklyn team than the one that's taken the floor tonight. I'm going to lean to the road favorite here. I haven't been looking to bet Brooklyn very much at all this season, especially since they got all these guys on the floor. But I think it sets up well for them. That I'd lean to them laying the 6.5. What do you think, Skee, with the Nets versus the Hawks?
Hawks on a second of a back-to-back too, right? And I mean, how could you not look Brooklyn's way? They should be able to name their number versus Atlanta Hawks team, especially if Capella's not in the lineup. He's questionable. If he doesn't play, Brooklyn Nets are going to score as many points as they want tonight. Even if he plays, I think they still have success. So that's the only way I would look in this one. I just think it's a much higher class for Brooklyn, and they're much more rested. So that's the way I would look. And for the total, I told you how I would play. If Capella's out, I would probably run to the window and bet the over.
All right, the next game on the slate, we've got the Lakers and the Sixers. Definitely one of the marquee games tonight in the NBA. We got the defending champs laying 4 on the road, 222 the total in this game. You know, I think Skee and I were both on that game last week with the Lakers as they went to Milwaukee and beat the Bucks, and I think we're both in the same boat there that, the Lakers are just fine. They've been great on the road. They're still undefeated, straight up on the road. The Milwaukee's had trouble stepping up in class again and winning these games against elite competition. It showed again last week against the Lakers. It's tough to bet against the Lakers, and now they're laying 4. The betting markets have flocked in their direction. Part of me thinks, though, this is a bigger game for Philly, and part of me also thinks Philly might be as good, if not better, than Milwaukee right now, to be honest with you, the Sixers team. And so when you compare these numbers and where they are, we got the Lakers as a dog, and I got them at +2. Last Thursday against Milwaukee on the road. And now they're laying 4 at Philly. And I actually think Philly's on par with Milwaukee, if not maybe even a little bit better when it's all said and done with Milwaukee, because you've certainly seen this team play more fluid basketball, especially defensively under Doc Rivers this year. Seth Curry, we've talked about him ad nauseum, but with good reason. Like, he's given them the perimeter threat they missed most of last year, that they didn't get any sort of that consistency and that extra punch from 3-point range without him last year. I understand betting the Lakers at the open, and I get it. It's tough to go against them on the road. They've been great. They've shown up in these big spots time and time and time again. There's no question. But I don't know if I want to lay 4 with them now. It's a game that's fascinating to me. I can't wait to watch it. I don't have anything strong. I just don't want to go against the Lakers on the road right now. But I don't think the value in the spot is as good here as it was against Milwaukee last week for this Lakers team. What do you think, Skee? A good game here, Lakers and Sixers.
I agree that it's not the same value, but I still would look towards the Lakers in this one. And I also agree that I like the Sixers more than the Milwaukee Bucks. So I understand what you're saying, but I think the market is just finally seeing like the Lakers are going to play on the road. They're undefeated. So we know that. I always say that they're prideful on the road, and I think they show up. I think LeBron's going to play, Anthony Davis is going to play, and I think the Lakers are the better team. So I say the better team wins tonight, and I think 3.5 or 4 is kind of just asking them to win. And like you said, it's not a big bet like last week with Milwaukee, but it is a play.
Yeah, it's to me. I'm not going against LA on the road and in these big spots. I mean, we've been waiting to see if they're going to do load management and sit LeBron, sit Anthony Davis, and other guys against Chicago and Cleveland. Teams like that, and they're still playing. They're still going out there and on the floor and playing in those games. You don't think you actually? So they're playing against Chicago. They're playing against Cleveland. You don't think they're going to play against Philadelphia in a national TV ESPN game? Of course they are. So yeah, I'd expect the Lakers to be at full strength. For sure in this one. And if they are, they're tough to beat, especially on the road. Denver and Miami. We've got Denver 6-point road favorites here, 219.5 the total in this one. Eric Spoelstra is clearly frustrated with the way the season's kind of broken down here for this Miami team, because they've clearly broken down from a, just player absence standpoint. I mean, it's just been basically a half, not even close to full strength team most of the season. Multiple guys out, and Tyler Hero's absence really hurts. And you're seeing that when a team that can play defense puts the clamps down on Miami. It really is tough for them to be able to find ways to score the basketball. And that's been the unfortunate thing for them the last few games. This is not the greatest of spots either for Denver. They've been on the road a lot. They played at Phoenix, a couple of barn burners, a tough back and forth game against Dallas. So you worry about this spot a little bit here for the Nuggets, but it's tough for me to get there with a bet on Miami right now. They're really struggling. They got blown out by 20 at Toronto. Hung tough in the first game against Brooklyn, and then Brooklyn took care of them in the second game, 98-85. Just a team that's having a tough time finding the basket consistently right now, with all the depleted parts to this Miami team that are out of the lineup right now. That being said, Denver's gone over the total 4 straight, so you've got a contradictory type of circumstance here. Denver's trended over. Miami's probably a team that's trending under a bit with the lack of scoring. So it's a tough game all around, but I'd lean a little bit to the road team, Denver. Skee, what do you think here? Nuggets versus Heat.
Nuggets are on a road trip, but I think their spot is better than Miami Heat. The Nuggets are playing good. They're healthy. Miami, they're the complete opposite. They're unhealthy, and they're not playing well. And now they're coming home after the long road trip, and everybody knows I like to fade that spot. It's a flat spot. 36-52 against the spread. I'm fading Miami tonight. I like Denver Nuggets in this one.
All right, liking the 6 here with Denver. Yeah, that would be the preferred side for me if I had to choose, no question. Washington, New Orleans. New Orleans 8-point home favorites here, 226.5 the total. And I've been fading the Wizards a lot. And like I said the other night, don't get me started about Russell Westbrook. I mean, people were betting Washington the first game he came back, and then people last night taking Washington late before the tip-off, knowing he'd play again against Houston. And I'm like, he's not really that great in terms of team building, making a team better, makes himself better more often than not. And sometimes he doesn't even do that when he's turning the ball over and treating the basketball like a hand grenade, which has been a problem for him for a very long time. And sure enough, took advantage of it. That was my one bet last night in the NBA. Houston laying the 3.5 against Washington, and they ended up rolling to the victory in that one. I'm not a fan of this Washington team one bit. However, there's just an equally poisonous, toxic betting proposition on the other side of this matchup, and that's laying 8 with New Orleans right now. I don't know if I can do that right now. I guess I'd lean Pelicans if I had to. It's a lesser of two evils type of game for me, but there's no doubt they've had their problems. They've had their struggles. Both teams, in fact, have really had a real issue right now and not playing very good basketball. It's just my opinion on Washington is so low that if I was forced to bet this game, I'd only look to New Orleans, but I'm not excited and giddy about laying 8 with them. So it's not a game I'm planning on betting tonight. Skee, how about you here? Wizards and Pelicans.
Yeah, no need for me to even talk too much about this game. It's a game that I'm just completely uninterested in. If I have to play, I'll just lean towards an under in this game.
All right, lean toward the under in that one from Skee. Boston, San Antonio. We've got the Celtics taking money. They were 2.5-point road favorites. They're up to 4 now in this game against the Spurs. Total in this one, 223.5 in this game. We've seen the betting markets react here to the news, of course, that they expect Jason Tatum to be returning for the Celtics tonight in this game. San Antonio, though, I'll tell you what, we've talked about San Antonio before on this show. They've actually gotten off to a pretty solid start this year, 9-8. They played a little bit better defensively. It hasn't always been every single game, but we've seen definitely progress from this San Antonio team at that end of the floor. They beat up on Washington 121-101 in their last game. Now, it's not saying much. They're going to be tested a lot more here by this Boston Celtics team. It's just, I get that feeling all the time when, the team gets a key player back like a Jason Tatum. It's just one of those situations where so many times people flock to bet that team. They're doing that here, pushing Boston up to -4. I understand why that is. Tatum's we know how great he is. He's incredible. He had a great year last year, and he was playing excellent before he got hurt, and he makes a world of difference for the Celtics. But so many times you bring back that great player, arguably your best player on the team, and everybody else just slacks off a little bit. And you just assume that, hey, we got Tatum back. Things are going to be rolling here in this game. But to me, it's a situation where I understand that theory, but I respect San Antonio enough that I don't know if I want to lay 4 on the road here with this Boston Celtics team. So I understand why it's been pushed that way. They've certainly played great the last couple, but I'm not going to get involved with this one from a Boston standpoint. If anything, maybe wait and see if you can grab the Spurs at the best number possible. I'm not involved in this game, though, as of right now. Skee, what do you think? Boston, San Antonio.
Spurs have been really good on the road. I don't think they've been as good at home, or at least against the spread. They're the other team that's in this spot that I like to fade. Teams that won their last game as a favorite, but they had to come back to do it down double digits, and they're at home and rested. 16, 32-1 against the spread. Yeah, I understand the player come back theory, but I like Boston. And I'll say this too. I've had Boston completely wrong this season. Out of all the teams, that's been the team to sting me, but I like Boston here. I'll continue to rock with fading with the trend, fade San Antonio here. And I just think Boston's the clear better team. So that's the way I'll look.
All right, we've got the Dallas Mavericks against the freight train that is the Utah Jazz. It's the runaway freight train, and that freight train ran over Knick backers last night in a horrendous fashion if you had New York in that game last night. We've got Utah, 2.5-point home favorites, 220 the total. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell not playing, huge news. We know that. He's really been a huge catalyst for this run that the Jazz have been on, this incredible point spread streak. And this is the streak, Skee, that they were on for a bit last year as well. They just get on this run where they look almost unbeatable. And I think we get lulled into a false sense of security when Utah puts these runs together that, hey, they're a big time contender in the West. I'm still not ready to go that far with Utah because we've seen this before. They go on this torrid run, and then they could easily, go on a 2-8 run right after this, whenever it finally cools off. But what can you say? 9 straight wins, 9 straight covers. They've just been obliterating teams left and right. 13-point win at Milwaukee, 10 at Detroit, 30 at Cleveland, 24 against Atlanta. The one close game was the Denver win, 109-105. They beat New Orleans by 16 and by 11. They beat Golden State by 19. They beat New York by 14. I mean, these are just their winning going away in all of these games outside of the Denver game. But again, you're looking at a situation tonight where Donovan Mitchell's not going to play. He's in concussion protocol. Derek Favors questionable as well for the Utah Jazz tonight. And you got a pretty good Mavericks team coming in to play you. Josh Richardson looks like he's going to be back tonight or playing tonight for the Mavericks. Kleba and Dorian Finney-Smith are still out, but Dallas off a couple of losses in a row against Houston and Denver, a real tough one against Denver. That was a back and forth game the other night. They led actually a good part of it, but fell just short, 117, 113. Certainly Utah as well, back to back, not a positive situation from a scheduling and situational perspective by any stretch. So I understand why Dallas has taken money, and I would lean Dallas. And but it's just tough. It's tough to get in Utah's way, even if they are shorthanded tonight with the run that they've been on. Nevertheless, if I were to bet this one, I think this could be the night when that streak gets snapped here against this Dallas Mavericks team. I certainly lean to the Mavericks here. I'm just wondering if I've actually got the guts to go against it and stand in front of this Utah run that they've been on. Skee, are you brave enough maybe to stand in front of this Utah run? Where do you stand here with Dallas and Utah?
Yeah, Utah can. I'm out on Utah today. No Mitchell too. I was good even if Mitchell played. I like Dallas tonight, but without Mitchell, I mean, they don't do this whatever streak they're on without him. They're not winning by margin.
No question. He's filling it up. Yeah, no question.
And Dallas, like you said, off of a couple bad losses. I look going back to last year off of a loss and on the road, 16-10 against the spread. For some reason, whatever the case may be, when they play a game at home and then go travel and play on the road, they play better. They're 23-7 against the spread in that situation. And I just think it's a get right game for them. I think that Utah will have their attention, and I think they want to get right. So I like Dallas tonight.
All right, like in the Dallas Mavericks plus 2.5. Yeah, I just get that sense, especially without Donovan Mitchell. This could be the night where Utah might finally have that straight up and ATS streak, which is at 9 games right now, finally snapped. We've got Oklahoma City, Phoenix Suns, 7.5-point home favorites, 216.5 the total in this one. You got to bet against OKC on the road at your own risk right now because this team has just been finding ways, cover numbers, stay competitive. They've just been able to get the job done. 6-4 straight up, 7-3 against the spread on the road. They've been underdogs in most of these games this season and found ways to be competitive. And you look at the last 2 games, 8-point loss at the Clippers, the win outright as road dogs against Portland. Second night of back-to-back too against the Blazers. But that tells you how poor the Blazers are defensively. I mean, the fact that the Thunder are on a back-to-back, and you let the Thunder shoot 120 or score 125 and shoot 43 of 84 against you. That's an indictment of Portland's defense right there in that loss to the Thunder on Monday night. But you worry a little bit for OKC here because this, I believe, is the end of the road trip for them. It is. It's the end of this 5-game road trip. They were at Denver, Clippers twice, Portland. Now they're in Phoenix tonight, and then they go home against Brooklyn. But, they still only have the 1 win on this road trip. I think there's an onus maybe to end it in good fashion. The problem is Phoenix may not take Oklahoma City lightly here. They're off a couple of frustrating overtime losses in a row, back-to-back against the Denver Nuggets. The question is, who's going to be in the lineup tonight for Phoenix? Devin Booker is out still with the hamstring injury. We know how significant that is. I still think maybe there's a chance Oklahoma City can cover another number here on the road. I'm leaning with the Thunder here, getting 7.5. Even with Phoenix, maybe circle the wagons and certainly fired up and not taking this game for granted after the 2 overtime losses. But I would look OKC. To me, they've just been too good a point spread team on the road to ignore it. And they've been finding ways to hang in there in games like this. Skee, what do you think here? Thunder versus the Suns.
Am I missing something here? 7.5 points, no Devin Booker. I'm not interested. I don't think the Suns are that good. Like, is Chris Paul all that good by himself? Like, the Suns were not a good team last year. I don't know. I don't understand why the number is that way. Like you said, OKC's been – you got to bet against them on the road at your own risk. Going back to last year when they're 1 day or less rest, 27-7-1 against the spread for OKC on the road. And that's 6-1 this year. So they want to keep giving out points. I'll take them. Give me the points with OKC.
I got to look this up because we've got Phoenix laying 7.5 here. I want to see what they've done here the last few times they've been favorites in this, bigger favorites overall. Let me see. At Houston, 5.5, they won. Home against, let me see here. At Detroit, 7.5, they lost in overtime. At Memphis, laying 5.5, they lost. At Washington, 6-point favorites there, they lost. Wow. I mean, and then the one home cover as a favorite was Toronto. They won 123-115. They've not been good, laying points. So you're right. It feels like there's something's missing here I don't know what it is. You're right. To me, you got to look OKC if anything. I mean, especially when you've got a situation for OKC and Dario Saric, I believe, is out as well for this Phoenix Suns team. So they got a couple key guys out. So I think Skee and I are in the same boat. We like OKC. We're a little mystified that they're getting as much as 7.5 here in this one. Minnesota and Golden State, final game on the slate. Golden State, 8.5-point home favorites here. 229.5 the total. This is a rematch of the game these two teams played back on Monday night. They're playing the second of this back-to-back against one another. Minnesota, just no contest, getting blown out by Golden State, 130 to 108. The game flies over the total. It was just another offensive expedition for Golden State, and they were focused on that game. They didn't take Minnesota for granted. They had the 2 losses to the Jazz and the Knicks, and they bounced back and took care of business here against Minnesota. Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that on the road, they've had some terrible showings. They lost by 18 at Portland. They lose by 11 at Atlanta. And of course, they get blown out by Golden State on Monday night. So their last 3 road games have been very poor. 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. And I know there's going to be some people. I know it. Let's take 8.5 with Minnesota. It's revenge for losing Monday night. And I said this on the college basketball show just now with Conor last hour. I like the revenge when the team that's in revenge is the better team. That's when I like the revenge. Minnesota's not the better team here. And sometimes you lose the first game, you're the inferior team. You're going to lose the second game too. And that could happen here against Golden State. So yeah, I want no part of Minnesota. It would be the Warriors or nothing. I didn't take Golden State, but that would be the preferred side for me, would be the Warriors here. Skee, what do you think with the Timberwolves and the Warriors?
I don't like this game very much, but I'm looking at the total. I want to look towards an under. I don't trust the Timberwolves offense, but both teams just play so fast. It makes me uncomfortable. I trust Minnesota's defense more than their offense, and I think Golden State can play solid enough defense too. The number that I have for this game is 225.5, and we're seeing 229.5. That's probably the way I would look. I wouldn't run to the window to back Golden State in this one. I don't want Golden State in this role laying this many points. I'd rather have them closer to a pick 'em or at the dog. So I guess maybe I would just lean Minnesota and under.
Yeah, and I think the spot too, Skee, to bet Golden State in this 8.5 favorite range was the last game against Minnesota because they were off 2 losses. They were focused, they were motivated, they put their head down, they played a great game. Now you just beat up this Minnesota team, and now you're playing them again, and you're laying the same number. I think the spot was better for Golden State the last time, so that's why I stayed off taking Golden State. But I certainly don't want any part of Minnesota here. They've had 3 in a row, just terrible games and no defense either. These last 3 road games for them. All right, so we have gotten through all games on this Wednesday NBA card. It is a big card. Skee, there's lots to choose from when it comes to best bet. What sticks out to you for best bet on this Wednesday NBA slate?
I'll just overlook one last time at the current lines. The current lines for this, I'll go, let's see, Dallas and Utah. Current line is 2.5?
You can get 2.5, yes, with Dallas.
I'll say this. I bet this game early, and I got +4. And that was before Mitchell was announced out. With Mitchell out, I think Dallas definitely wins this game. So I like Dallas on the money line.
All right, let's go money line there for a little bit extra bang for your buck there. That's Dallas. This is, never mind the 2.5. Skee says take the money line. Dallas to get the victory against Utah and snap this 9-game win streak. You can still get +120 to +125 here with Dallas on the money line. So still pretty good price there with that. Dallas money line against Utah. Skee Profit with his best bet for this show. I'm going to go to, let me just see. For me, it's going to be either Brooklyn or OKC. I'm trying to think back and forth. I'm going to do Brooklyn here, -6 against Atlanta. Let's do Brooklyn -6 against Atlanta. Back-to-back for Atlanta. Okay, they beat the Clippers last night. Clippers didn't have anybody in the game, last night. They were resting guys. So, you take that win with a grain of salt. Brooklyn showed me defense the other night, and I think this team knows it's time to stop screwing around. It's time to stop losing to Cleveland, back-to-back games like they did. It's time to get on a run and get this cohesion going, and that was the best Brooklyn team by far, not even close, since they've had all these guys together under Steve Nash, and now they're going to have the chance, I think, to keep it going here against Atlanta, in a negative spot for Atlanta, too, playing back-to-back. So for me, I'll go with Brooklyn -6 against Atlanta. That'll be my best bet for this Wednesday NBA closing time show. That'll wrap it up. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Great turnout in the chat. 80 people watching live. We appreciate it. We're here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific with the NBA closing time show. We'll be back with you Friday at that time for another edition of the NBA closing time show right here on Pub Sports Radio. For Skee Profit, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the NBA action. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you Friday for another edition of the NBA closing time show right here